Hello members of AFR. Today Captain Chris Romero and I will be discussing the new portable radios that will be deployed to the field in the coming weeks. This video will cover the basic functionalities of the radio, including the new features that are available. After watching this video, you should have a good grasp of how the new radios will work and a basic understanding of how to navigate the options available. In the coming weeks, Captain Fox will be developing another radio training that will encompass the more advanced features and advanced skills that should also be learned. There will also be a PowerPoint and a user guide available in Target Solutions showing the features we talk about today. First, Captain Romero will discuss the buttons we already know how to use.
Thank you, Captain Marufo. Today, as Captain Marufo stated, I'll be discussing some of the buttons that we already know how to use. Obviously, we have our training here, but we're going to be discussing the Motorola Apex 8000 XE portable radio, which will be rolled out to the field in the coming weeks. Here, I'm going to pull up some of the controls of the radio, and I'm going to discuss what we already know how to use based on what we're currently using. First is going to be the power and volume knob. I'll go ahead and turn this radio on right here, and it'll power up.
Track 1.
This is similar to what we already use, but either way, this controls our volume, and we can go as loud as we want. Okay. Next is going to be our 16 position channel knob, our voice enunciator. We are able to store 16 channels within that talk group. So if we switch talk groups,
Tag 2.
it announces what
Tag 3.
channel we're on, which is beneficial if we happen to be in a situation where we can't necessarily see the screen. This will help us to know what channel we're on.
Tag 4.
So we can go all the way up
EMS.
through
EMS.
16 channels.
EMS.
And as before,
Tag
we
3.
have AFR alarm on channel 1 and on channel 16 as before. Next, we have our orange emergency button. This can be depressed with a gloved or ungloved hand for 2 seconds. At this point, it'll send emergency traffic tones to the alarm room, and it'll give you an open mic for 10 seconds. This will allow potentially a downed firefighter or someone that's in a situation, a troubled situation, to communicate and take over the airways. Finally, we have our push to talk button here on the side, which you're familiar with. You just push it like normally you've pushed before, and you're able to talk. So those are some of the features that are existing that we're used to using, and you shouldn't have any trouble with that transition. Next, I want to discuss some of the newer things that are pictured here on the top, which, like I said, we can reference this right here. This has all of the main features listed throughout. I want to discuss the top display here. The radios that we're used to using, and Captain Marufo will discuss a little further, we have a screen on the back, and we also have one on the top. But the one I want to focus on here is the top. This tells you what channel you're on. As we change channels, please pay close attention to the different color changes. For alarm, it's going to be green. For our TAC channels, they turn red as you turn to them. So TAC 1, TAC 2, TAC 3 will all be red. TAC 4, EMS will be clear. So look at those colors and pay close attention to them if you're having to look down at that screen. They stay that color for a short period of time, so it goes away after a few seconds. Something to, like I said, pay close attention to, and as you're looking down at the radio, which we'll discuss later, you can tell what channel you're on. Another great feature that we have on these new radios is going to be a toggle switch. We have an ABC toggle switch. This is set to the following talk groups. Talk group AFR1 is going to be A. Talk group AFR2, as we switch to
Alarm.
B, that goes to AFR2, and then C is going to be set
Alarm.
to special event. And within each talk group, there's several
Alarm.
channels that exist, which you can reference the guide that'll be placed in Target Solutions at a later point in time. Next, we have the lock-unlock toggle switch, which is located right here in the front. The circle without a line through it is going to be unlocked. As we lock that, it locks the keypad. So as Captain Marufo will discuss later, it makes it almost impossible to change anything or do anything when we lock that. Before, with the older radios that we're currently using, you would have to press a couple of buttons to unlock it, and that's how you would scroll through and make changes. Now we can physically change this toggle switch to lock, and then from there we can move on. So that kind of covers some of the newer features of the top of the radio. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Captain Marufo, who's going to cover some of the buttons on the side of the radio and also on the back side of the radio.
Thanks, Captain. So we'll talk about the sides of the radio next. Obviously, on one side we have the connection point for our mic, which we'll go in depth later. but the right side of the radio, when the screen is facing you, we have a purple button. That purple button silences a man down alarm. So one of the new features on this radio is a man down alarm, similar to our SCBAs. I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer on it, and you guys will hear it. It's gonna take 90 seconds to go off. So any angle less than 45 degrees is gonna set that timer, is gonna start that timer. 90 seconds, we're gonna hear the alarm here in about a minute or minute and a half. Once that pre-alarm, it's called a pre-alarm, once that pre-alarm goes off, you have 30 more seconds to move that radio. If you don't move that radio or shake the radio in some form, the alarm room will now get a full emergency alert, which means it's like we're gonna handle it like a Mayday or a code 900. That's the whole purpose of this radio, is if the radio thinks you're down or incapacitated, it's gonna start a timer. We're gonna be watching over you in the alarm room, and we're gonna check with you. So we'll give this timer some time to cycle through. 90 seconds, pre-alarm, 120 seconds, so 30 seconds after the 90 seconds, it'll go to full emergency mode, and we'll talk about how to reset that and how we'll handle that. And that'll lead us into the purple button, the side button, which is purple. So as we're waiting for the timer, I'll discuss, so when this alarm goes off, the full 120-second alarm, the alarm room will now get an emergency tones. The alarm room will now verify with a message of code 900. The unit, if you are safe, will say all safe, and the alarm room will disregard the emergency. After we disregard the emergency, your radio is still in emergency mode. That's a new feature. You have to silence, okay, we'll go back to that. So you hear this, that's the man down alarm. Okay, I'm gonna turn the volume down on it, but it gets loud. That being said, that was 90 seconds. Now we're in the 30-second full alarm. So if I don't move this in the next, now we'll probably have 10 seconds left, it's gonna go to full emergency alarm. Okay, we're in full emergency alarm right now. So the alarm room now got a notification, their screen turns red, they can identify what unit the radio is assigned to, and they will check with you code 900, all safe, or command on a fire would check what's going on with you. Alarm room now silences their end. They now ask code 900, you say all safe. Alarm room disregards the alarm if you are safe, but now your radio is in emergency mode. So it's gonna say emergency blinking. If alarm room silences your alarm, no matter what, if you push the talk button to talk to alarm or command, it resets the emergency. You have to physically disarm your emergency from your radio, if you will. That's what this orange button Chris was talking about. So the emergency button, we all know 2 seconds, pushing it down activates an emergency. 3 seconds now, holding it down for 3 seconds deactivates it. So I'm gonna push it. You're gonna hear that beep. The emergency traffic, the emergency sign that was blinking is now gone, and now your radio is back to normal use, normal functionality. So this is obviously, when we first roll these radios out, this is gonna be probably something that we're not used to. We're gonna get these accidental alarms. The key is at 90 seconds, when you hear that pre-alarm, you need to move your radio. So now we'll talk, go ahead, Chris. Cap.
Well, I wanted to add to what Captain Manufo was talking about with this purple button. When that alarm sounds, let's say we're on an EMS call and you have your radio in your pouch, which we'll discuss later, the accessories, you can press that purple button and it will silence that alarm. And it'll silence that alarm until you bring that radio back past that 45-degree angle. And once you do that, it'll reset the count and start it over again. So if we're on an EMS scene, we're working a code, and we hit this purple button, it's gonna erase that alarm and basically not allow it to alarm again until you reset it and bring it back upright. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So as you know, we're around a lot of EMS scenes where the radios can be in a position for a long period of time. So keep that in mind.
Exactly. That's the last point is, even at pre-alarm, when it pre-alarms at 90 seconds, you just hit that purple button, it disregards, and now you can stay in this position working for as long as you want. Not until you go vertical, like you stated, will it reset the timer. So this is gonna take some getting used to, but just know the purple button is there to let you work in that position with the radio down. The next button we're going to talk about is we talked about the push to talk button, obviously, to talk to other radios. The next button below that has a single dot on it. This button here has to do with the top display. The way you're going to be wearing these radios in a holster or on a clip, you're going to be able to see that top display. The top display, if you look at it, if I push this button, it now flips my display over so I can read it. So when the radio is on my holster, it's going to be easily readable by me. So just switching that button will flip it back the other way. So it's pretty simple. That's all that button does. The next button we're going to go to is the last button on the side of the radio, the bottom button. Now this is a new feature. This feature, me and Chris are both going to show you guys kind of an example, and we're going to talk about, this is radio playback, this bottom button. Anytime a transmission, if someone stays the transmission, let's say alarm room or unit to unit, as long as you push this button, it records that last transmission and will replay it for you. So this could be beneficial in a situation where you missed the alarm room traffic, you're not sure what they said. You can just hit this button for approximately 2 seconds. It saves the message. You'll hear a beep, and it'll replay it back all with one push. So we'll test it right now. Go ahead and go to TAC 1.
TAC 1, I'm on TAC 1.
So we're on TAC 1. He's going to make a message.
Engine 5-2 alarm.
Engine 521.
As long as I hit that button,
Engine 521.
it's going to replay his message.
Alarm.
So if you guys listen, it's going to start playing a list of messages that have been saved on this radio. It's saved, I believe, 50 messages. We can't confirm that yet, but
We'll get the number out to you guys as soon as we figure that out. But I mean, you can reference transmissions that were recorded as long as it's within that number, and we'll get that out in the Target Solutions training down the road. But great beneficial tool that we can utilize, and he's probably going to actually cover a little bit more on that and the benefits to having that recorded transmission.
go ahead and give me one more message. We'll do one more time.
Alarm to engine 12.
Engine 12.
I'm going to hit the button to save it, replay it.
Alarm to engine 12.
Other messages keep playing until you hit a talk button or any button on your radio. That'll disable that feature. So if you just want to hear the first message that you missed, let it play, and then hit any button on your radio, and that'll stop the replay of all the other recorded messages. So that's a great feature. I think it's one of the best features of this radio in the future. Let me see what else here. So that covers pretty much those buttons. Like I said, it'll be, like Captain said, it'll be in Target Solutions if you forget what it means or what these buttons do. Also, let's go ahead and move to the front and back of the radio. So here's where it gets kind of confusing, the front and back. This is technically the front of the radio, your main screen. This is where you're going to do a lot of your functions. But when it sits in the holsters that will be provided, it's going to face your body. The radio is going to face your body, which is the point of the whole top screen, top display. So we'll call this the front just because that's what we're used to. You agree with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Even though
We'll
it's
call
going
that
to be in your holster facing you. So on the front, we're going to move to the front and back of the radio. The first things on the front we're going to talk about, there's a microphone on the front and there's a microphone on the back right here. So either way you're talking, the radio is going to hear it. It's going to pick up a good message, loud message. So no more of the trying to get your voice over the airwaves. Doesn't matter which way you consider the front, both have a microphone on this radio. Now, speaker-wise, this right here in the middle, there's a couple of little ports here. That's your speaker. That's your main speaker. So when it is resting against your body, you'll be able to hear the traffic through the speaker. So that's why this is considered the front now, because you'll be able to hear that speaker. Okay. Do you want to talk about the main display? You want to do that? So main display, so now we'll go, that's really it on the back is the speaker and the microphone. The front, now we'll go into these buttons below the main screen. The main display obviously is the screen, and then there's three, you can see these buttons here, 1, 2, and 3 dots. These 3 buttons are how you move these options on the bottom of your main screen. When you turn your radio on, you're gonna have zone up. It's gonna always default to zone up, zone down, and zone. These are your talk groups. So just a quick, if I hit zone up, I'm on AFR1, TAC 1 right now. AFR1, TAC 1. If I wanna go to AFR2, zone up.
TAC 1.
If I want to go to special events, zone up.
TAC 1.
If I want to go back down to AFR2, zone down.
TAC 1.
If I want to go back to AFR1, zone down.
TAC 1.
So that's the way, right? You can scroll through endlessly police channels, but we're always pretty much going to be on AFR1. Now, this zone button on the far right, the zone option, you click that, it's going to take you to all the zones available in your radio. There's a lot of different talk groups. So If you want to just go and find it this way, you can. You hit the zone, and it brings up a list of zones. And you can go find any talk group you want like this, and then hit the select button, and it'll take you to that talk group. The easier way for us is pretty much, since we're going to mostly operate on AFR1, AFR2, and special events, is zone up and zone down. That's, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
But the zone option is there. If you want to go to a PD talk group that you just don't know how to find, you can just scroll there and hit on police, hit select,
Southwest.
takes you to police. Pretty easy. And then you just go back.
TAC 1.
So those are the buttons are defaulted to. Every time you turn on your radio, it's going to default to zone up, zone down, and zone. Like Chris said earlier, Captain Romero, sorry. If you don't want to move, if you don't want to mess with these buttons, you're going to go ahead and lock that toggle switch. Now, we're not able to do anything. Nothing will happen. So remember that lock toggle switch in the back. Next, we'll talk about the four-way navigation button on the radio. This four-way directional pad, that's going to make these options on the bottom of your main screen change. So if you go, let's go to the right. Now we have scan, scan list, and mute. Scan, if you hit scan and you get that tone, you don't have any channels in there to scan. So next we'll go, how do we add scan channels? Now you're going to click on the middle button, scan list. Click on that scan list. It's going to open all the channels available to this radio. And you're going to go ahead and add. There's obviously a select, delete, or recall. So let's go, just a quick example, gentlemen. Let's select TAC 2. It now adds a Z. It adds a Z, which means that's one of your scan channels now. And we'll go to TAC, let's go TAC 2 and TAC 4. I'm going to add TAC 4. It adds a Z. So now we have those two channels in our scan list. Let's do one more, EMS 1. If you hit the select button twice, it's going to add the Z. And then let's say that we want that as our priority scan channel, our #1 scan channel. You hit that select again. It's going to have a Z. It looks like a Z. It's really an arrow, but it's a Z with a little orange dot. That is your primary scan channel, and that's going to trump all the other scan channels you create. So now we have 3 or 4 channels scanning. We have them selected. Now let's go to the home button, and we can hit scan. Now we're scanning. Scan's on. Okay, it's not making that tone anymore. We know we're scanning some channels. But if we forget, or the crew previous to you had picked a few channels to scan and they forgot to remove them, let's go back into scan list. Click scan list. We don't know what channels they have scanning because there's over 100 channels that they could pick from. The quick way to get to those channels is the recall. Hit that RCL on the far right. It's gonna scroll you through all of your channels that are being scanned. So if you look, it's taking me from TAC 2, TAC 4, EMS 1. It's just gonna scroll through the channels we picked to scan. So this is an easy way to, okay, I don't need TAC 4 anymore, delete. Next, I don't need EMS 1 to be scanned, delete. Next, TAC 2, delete. You keep doing that until you get those tones. Now you know you don't have any more channels in your scan list. So then you'd be done. Scan list is beeping because there's no scan, so we just turn scan off. So those are your next 2 options. The far right button is now mute. We'll go to mute. Mute is simple. You hit mute, and it turns the voice enunciator off. No more, you're not going to hear TAC 1, TAC 2, TAC 3. It's going to take it back basically to the old style of radios where it didn't tell us what channel we're on. So you just simply, to get rid of that, you hit mute again. Voice enunciator is back on. So now you're going to hear
TAC 2. TAC 3.
So
TAC 2. TAC 1.
the mute button simply eliminates that voice. The next options, if we use the directional pad, we went over scan, we went over scan list, we went over mute. Now we'll go over one more time, Wi-Fi. Captain Romero, you want to talk about Wi-Fi?
Yeah, sure, Wi-Fi. So this is a great added feature with these new radios where the Wi-Fi is going to be beneficial for us. There's a couple pieces to it. If for some reason you may have lost an antenna during your service, and we know what happens with the old radios, they're not functional once we lose that radio. So now if we remove this antenna, it should pick up Wi-Fi. We're currently working on a couple facilities right now. UNM, we've typically had issues with communication in that UNM buildings. We're working on that, APS, and then all city facilities, City of Albuquerque facilities. Once that antenna, if it were to fall off or it was removed inadvertently, it should switch over to Wi-Fi. So that's one benefit there. So I'll go ahead and put this back on.
So the Wi-Fi is going to allow them to operate the radio inside the building?
Correct.
Subgrade, all that?
Right, yeah, if we go subgrade and we lose signal, it should kick over to the Wi-Fi signal. So we're working on that right now, and we're trying to expand the number of facilities that we can utilize Wi-Fi at. So another great added feature to keep in mind.
That's an awesome feature. The next one we went over Wi-Fi. The next small option there on the bottom of the main screen is Recent, RCNT, Recent. This is just another form of saving that message. We talked about earlier, that message, that bottom button replays the last message. Well, let's say you want to go hear a message that you saved earlier, or you just want to go to listen to recent messages. Click that Recent. It's going to take you to other options. You can go on Recent Conversations. There's also some other options on here, but Recent Conversations and Save Conversations are the two main options. So I guess you could just go up one and you'll go to Save Conversations. So Recent Conversations, we should be able to hear what Captain Romero said to me about 5-10 minutes ago. So I'm going to click on Select. I'm going to go on the last transmission, which was 3 seconds. And then from here, you can scroll through. Oh, sorry. So Recent Conversations, click Select. And then I can go and scroll through several messages and hit play.
Alarm engine 4. Engine 521. Alarm 2, engine 12.
Same thing, it's going to play your messages in consecutive order until you hit a button to stop it. But you see, that's a pretty good feature. So you just click Recent, go to Recent Conversations, hit Select, scroll to the message you want, hit play.
Engine 521.
You can hit stop, stops it there. Let's say you want to save that message for future, maybe you want to save your size up, something like that, someone's size up. You hit that button and now it's saved in the radio. You go back later, you go play it, and you want to let the crew hear it. You hit the save button. Now it's down on your saved conversations. So that's a good feature. Anything else you want to say about
feature? No.
And then the last button on the right here is battery. Simple, just gives you your battery information, 95% charge, how many charges it's had, and your remaining capacity. So that's really it on those. Oh, there's two more. Sorry.
That's fine. Go ahead. The laptop. That's a
okay.
feature.
So
just another point, right?
STS, yeah. So we'll just go over these last. So if you do the directional pad one more set over, it goes to STS and BT. STS has to do with messages and send statuses. I believe it's more like a police feature, kind of an all safe. We're not going to use these right now. This will be something maybe that Captain Fox in his radio presentation may go over if we get these abilities, or if we figure out the situation on if we're going to allow them or not. The last button is Bluetooth. Click on Bluetooth. Obviously, there's ways to use Bluetooth with these radios.
It's a feature that we'll cover later on. Some of the functions that will be available in this radio aren't available at this point in time, but will down the road, and that potentially will be covered in Captain Fox's expanded radio training.
You want to talk about that? Yeah, the home button.
Yeah. So, in terms of icons, as you can see on these new radios, and this will be included in Target Solutions, there's going to be some icons that are on the screen that you may not know what they mean. We'll include this in the training with the user guide within Target Solutions, battery life, receive signal strength indicator, roaming, scan, which Captain Marufo discussed. And then we also have some more here where when you're receiving a call, when you're transmitting a call, what happens when your battery gets low, it's going to blink. So just use that as a reference guide just in case you have any questions onto what each icon means within the radio.
The last two things will go on the front here. We already went over the directional pad. We went over the options on the main screen with these three buttons and how these basically navigate and pick those functions. You see a home here, a little house. That's your home button. Wherever we're at, make sure we're locked. Wherever we're at, let's say we go into the messaging feature and we're stuck in here. We don't know how to back out. Obviously, you could just hit exit, but just a quick way to get to your home screen, hit the home button. It's going to get you to your main channel. It's going to get you where you need to be for operational purposes. So the home button, just all it does is get you to your home screen. And then if you look on the right, on my left, I mean, that's the little laptop there. That little laptop's for messaging functions, messaging features. We're not going to use those at this time, but that's something that possibly Captain Fox or we'll go over in his training, or we'll develop on in the future. That's it for all. And then obviously the keypad. This is another thing Captain Fox hopefully will cover, is the iCall feature of these radios. Do you know a little bit more about that?
Yeah, in terms of iCall, I know in the past radio trainings that you've received from Captain Fox, iCall feature in terms of communicating with with other units or a specific radio.
As a phone.
On a unit, basically acting as a phone where you have that direct contact. That'll be something that'll be covered in the expanding training with Captain Fox for sure.
Okay, so that pretty much covers everything on the radio, the new buttons, the new options with the main screen. We went over the new pre-alarm, man-down alarm, and now Captain Romero is going to go over obviously the new lapel mic.
Okay, so next I'm going to discuss the accessories that are going to be included. Each apparatus will get a complement of this equipment for each position. First, we're going to have our belt, which you guys are all familiar with. We're going to have our holster here, which this is something that needs to be put on prior to putting the lapel mic on. I'll go ahead and put it on for now. What you're going to want to do is slide this up, and you want to get over this lip here, and that's going to lock the radio. So that's what's going to be used as our holster. Okay. Next, we'll have our lapel mic, the XE-RSM. It's a noise canceling microphone. So if we're running a saw or doing some type of roof operations where there's a lot of noise in the background, that'll cancel that out, and that'll allow the alarm room, other units to hear communications better. This lapel mic, which we're used to in the past, trying to find a screwdriver, a Leatherman, and trying to get this thing put onto the radio. This now has a wheel on it. Obviously, we want to try to do our best to take care of all this equipment to the best of our ability. But in terms of the ease of putting this on, we're going to go ahead, and this notch right here is going to go into this area right here. And then from there, we will turn this flywheel, okay? And we'll do that until it's hand tight. From there, we will now have access to our lapel mic. I won't put it on I won't put it onto the strap at this point in time, but I want to demonstrate some of the features that now are available on this new lapel mic. The first thing I want to talk about is our push to talk, this giant button right here. That's what we'll utilize when we want to make a transmission. So engine 5 to alarm.
Engine 5 to alarm.
Great microphone. It picks up a lot of your voice, and you don't have to talk too loud to get a clear transmission. Next, we're going to have our volume button, which is a great feature that's going to sit up here as we turn up our volume. And I'll have Captain Marufo make a transmission. It's going to be a little bit loud, but...
Alarm room to engine 5, engine 5.
So I can go ahead and increase my volume from, as you can tell, from right next to my person here, okay? From there, we also have, if for some reason we have our radio, we're in a fire and we want to know what channel we're on, instead of blindly trying to find out what channel we're on, we can now hit this button right here.
TAC 1.
This bottom button, it's going to tell us what channel we're on. So that bottom button
TAC
will
1.
announce what channel we're on. So if we're supposed to be on TAC 1 for an incident, and for some reason we bumped it and it got switched to TAC 2, we
TAC
push
1.
this button and then we can tell what channel we're on. So
TAC
I'm
2.
on TAC 2 down here. Okay, I forgot now.
TAC
2, that's where we're at. The final feature here, which, well, actually there's two more features I want to cover. The emergency button, which you guys are familiar with. We can depress this button right here, just like we did from the radio. We hold that down for 2 seconds, and as we discussed earlier, it's going to send that emergency, okay? We can also reset it from here by holding it for that 3 seconds. Once we hear that tone, the emergency's been reset. The final feature, which is beneficial when we're on an EMS call and we need to find something, or maybe we're in the truck on the way to an incident and we need some light. If we hold this button down, we can turn on the flashlight, which it may be hard to see in the camera, but we now have a flashlight to help us maneuver through, finding a pen or whatever you need. Okay. Another feature, when we do have that alarm that sounded, I'm going to actually do that for you again. That light will blink. So let me do that again for you real quick. We'll go ahead and.
So he's in emergency mode now.
So we're in emergency mode. We have the blinking light. So that's another key in terms of if we were going in to do a search and someone had to press that button and they were unconscious for whatever reason, we maybe could look for this light here. So it's another added feature that could be utilized as a life-saving measure. And like earlier in the presentation, Captain Marufo said, when we place this on, the screen is going to be to your body. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Utilization of the top screen is going to be huge, and like we talked about earlier, when we're looking down at that screen, by flipping that screen using that top button with the 1, now we can see it when we're looking down at the radio.
Yep, that's big. Last thing we'll talk about real quick is battery. Captain Romero already showed you antenna removal, obviously hand tight. Just take the antenna off. You really shouldn't need to do this unless you're, like you said, using that Wi-Fi feature in a building, a city building. What were we gonna say about it?
One thing I wanted to add on, in addition to the antenna, when you come on shift as a driver checking the truck, check the tightness of that antenna. I mean, we use a lot, or lose a lot of antennas, and obviously now with Wi-Fi available, that's a key to potentially losing that antenna. But tighten it at the beginning of your shift and make sure that it's tight so we don't lose those.
And then obviously we'll talk about the battery removal. So this battery has two little depressions here. You push down on those clips, battery comes off. These clips, I want to just show you real quick. These clips right here are very, I'd say, fragile. They're meant, I mean, I could see some of these being broken in the future, so I just want to stress to take care of these batteries. To when you do push the battery back in, you can see how that clip hits on the side. Just be gentle with it. If you actually depress with your fingers a little bit before you fully slide it in, kind of makes it a little easier. So just be careful when you're putting that battery off and on, just to take care of these batteries, take care of the antennas.
Right. And if for some reason, I know we like to force things, let's not. Like Captain Marufo said, you slide it in, it's gentle. Let's try to take care of this equipment. It's going to last us a long time. And we're really excited to roll these radios out to the field, for sure.
Okay, that's anything else you can think of? Right?
No, we'll keep you updated.
Okay, that's it for this training video. Hopefully we're able to convey the new features and capabilities of the APX 8000 XE radio. Please don't consider this training to be all-inclusive. Like we said, Captain Fox will be developing a more advanced training as far as other talk groups, patching, stuff like that. And also we're going to upload this PowerPoint onto Target Solutions File Center, as well as the actual radio user manual, which is a very long document, but I went ahead and read the whole document. It's about 100 pages, and highlighted in green what pertains to us, because there's a lot of features we will not use that these radios come with, but I highlighted in green what pertains to us, just to make it a little bit of an easier read if you want to learn more about the radios. That's really it. Thank you guys for being with us today.
We look forward to rolling these radios out, and if you guys have any questions, obviously feel free to contact myself or Captain Marufo to answer those questions.